But, Donnie, let's get to some NFL news and notes yesterday. We have often said the Cincinnati Bengals, not exactly the most lavish franchise. They have not necessarily been the most prudent in how they have handled their finances over the last few off seasons. Disastrous off seasons, really, in the last few years in Cincy. And yet they told us this time around, don't fret, we're going to pay everybody. We know we have a lot of tabs coming due at the same time. Don't worry. Tee Higgins might be tagged. Long-term extension. Ja'Marr Chase, highest paid non-quarterback ever for sure. Trey Hendrickson, sack leader in the NFL this past year, defensive player of the year, runner-up. You're going to get your money too. And Donnie, we always said we're slightly hesitant because that would mean trusting the Bengals at their word. We were correct to have some skepticism. In a meeting where Trey Hendrickson flew to Cincinnati and talked about his future with the franchise, the Bengals have given Hendrickson permission to seek a trade. A disaster in Cincy once again.
Yeah, we'll see what they get for draft compensation, but it is interesting where your defense is really bad. You have one of the best sack guys in the NFL, and I just don't really know if we want to pay him because it's all about the bottom dollar in Cincinnati. And this didn't just start in a couple of years. Like the Brown family's been in control for the Bengals since the Bengals' inception in the AFL/NFL. But understand this too. Let's go back, 20, 25 years. Carson Palmer, starting quarterback for the Bengals, like, I hate it here. And like, cool, sit out because we're not going to trade you at all. Now, a year later, the Raiders bailed them out with multiple first-round draft picks. They made the trade. But the Brown organization is basically saying to themselves, just say the Brown family is saying, you know what? Bottom dollar, we'll still make money regardless of any of these football players play. And we can't re-sign everybody. You can. You see everybody around the league. All it takes is an owner that's willing to put up the signing bonus, which means, hey, Joe Burrow, paid you a lot of money. Let's restructure your contract, give you even more front-loaded money so we can include other players. You're now looking at a defense that's cut multiple players. Multiple players have retired off of that defense. And now you're saying, okay, let's bring back Tee Higgins, Ja'Marr Chase, and Joe Burrow. Good luck next year at 8 and 9, where Burrow's like, damn it, I scored 45 points and we still lost this game. That sounds like it's going to happen again next year in Cincinnati.
Going to have to score 6 or 7 touchdowns every game just to have a chance if this is where the offseason is going. Sam Hubbard retires. Trey Hendrickson might be on his way out. This doesn't feel like a posturing or negotiating tactic. This feels like a guy in Hendrickson who has asked for an extension each of the last few years and then backed it up with high-level performance, 17.5 sacks this year and last year, and finished runner-up in DPOY. Still can't get his money from a porous defense a year ago. More NFL headlines up next, live right here on the Early Line. So, when the Bengals tell you who they are, believe them, because it does not seem they will pay and extend Trey Hendrickson, despite telling everybody early in the offseason and having their quarterback campaign for it, that would be the case. Trey Hendrickson, the NFL Defensive Player of the Year runner-up, the NFL's sack leader from a season ago, has been given permission by the Bengals to seek a trade, which, Johnny, I think should call into question what Cincy's other plans are this offseason. How are they going to build a defense under Al Golden? Jermaine Pratt, he's also one of their defensive leaders. He's not happy. He demanded a trade earlier this offseason. Tee Higgins, not thrilled with being placed under the franchise tag for a second straight year. And Ja'Marr Chase is probably looking around like, all of this is happening, and we're still worlds apart in terms of the contract that I want to get done. Where the Bengals have now looked at Max Crosby becoming the highest paid defensive player ever, the highest paid non-quarterback ever, and have to either fork that money up if Hendrickson were to ever remain in the organization, and now fork up even more money to make Ja'Marr Chase the promised non-quarterback highest paid player ever.
Yeah, imagine if, let's just say, over the past 2 years, you signed Tee Higgins to market value, knowing that the salary cap's going to go up in the next couple of years once you get the new CBAs out there. That's understandable. But signing them sooner than later always saves you a lot of money. So let's just say you could have saved per year $5 million on Tee Higgins' contract. And then Ja'Marr Chase, you signed him last year instead of this year. Let's just say another $5 million a year. That's $10 million a year. Now, also understand this. There's big money out there. So every year, what good teams do when they're right in the middle of when they think they can make Super Bowl runs with a talented roster, they continue to restructure those guys, push more money up front to them so they're happy, which gives you more flexibility in your payroll to go out and get more good players for your team. And again, once that goes down, it's like, hey, you know, you need a year or two to get out from under that salary cap. That's what happens here. But the Cincinnati Bengals do everything backwards. They don't sign their young talent. They don't want to pay them. They hold that franchise tag over the head and say, you'll pay for this, you'll play for this. And if you don't want to, sit out. We don't care if it actually affects us on the field. That's a rare organization in the NFL because most ownership groups have enough money to handle their business. And the reason why they're in it is not because my dad passed it over to me. It was, I am a billionaire businessman. I understand what's good for business, but at the same time, I didn't necessarily buy the franchise because I needed to pad my wallet. It's more of a status symbol going like, the better that team is here, when I drive around and, you know, on my yacht or my Rolls Royce and I pull up with a Super Bowl ring in that room, everybody knows who I am because this is what I do for fun, not my day job. The Brown family, I think every single person in their family works for the Cincinnati Bengals and is on the payroll here. They're just doing things backward. And it's a shame because you want to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals fans, say, imagine if like this ownership group and family just sold the team to a conglomerate with billions of dollars, all the money you would have in that great organization. You don't want to waste Joe Burrow. You don't want to waste Jamar Chase. You don't want to waste Tee Higgins. You want Hendrickson back. You want to add to that defense. You want to feel that you're in it year to year because now it seems like they're going, we'll give you guys what you want. You want a Tee Higgins, Chase, and Burrow? Well, I can't afford anybody else, but you fans got what you want. That's not the way it's supposed to work in the NFL. Come on.
Not at all. And it's really disappointing for a very talented Bengals roster that has proven they can contend for Lombardi trophies and knock off the Chiefs and win the AFC Championship, and yet will not have the funding and resources we would believe to become a legitimate contender once again. They might be able to score 45 every single game. We're not sure it's going to be enough. Yeah. It's going to be fun, though. Bet a lot of overs when it comes to the Bengals once again. The Jaguars making some interesting moves yesterday as well, trading away Christian Kirk to divisional foe Houston for a 7th-rounder in return in 2026, releasing two-time Pro Bowl tight end Evan Ingram, also parting way with a bunch of other players on the roster, Josh Reynolds, Ronald Darby on the defensive side, even Devin Duvernay, the talented kick return specialist, Liam Cohen coming in there and making some changes to how that roster looks.
By the way, Kirk going over to Houston, I like that move a lot because when you have a setup here with already a number one, what are you looking for around them? Tank Dell got injured last year. You need speed around Nico Collins. I like that move a lot. But you say to yourself, Jacksonville, boy, all that talent on the roster the past couple of years didn't amount to all that much. I don't mind a new general manager and a new head coach coming to town saying, let me get my guys that are going to fit my system here and we'll be a better franchise for it. You already saw that with the same AFC opponent there in the Chargers. You know what? We have a talented roster, hasn't worked out. Let me clean house a little bit, get my foundation set and move forward. I don't mind what Liam Cohen and the Jacksonville Jaguars are doing. They lost some talented players, but they're setting up their franchise for success by getting the players they feel will be able to buy into the new system.
It's what you want to see out of a new regime. It's what the Commanders did. Last year, they bring back Bobby Wagner on a 1-year, $8 million fully guaranteed deal. At least that $8 million is guaranteed. Maybe some more NFL. But hey, hour 2, what's up next? Hour number 2. Welcome to it live right here on this Friday on the early line on SportsGrid. He is Donnie. I am Ben. A lot to get into here in this second hour. A ton of hoops focus, playing one of our favorite games, buy or sell. We'll have more NFL headlines from what has been a busy week ahead of the official start of the league year next week, and that legal tampering negotiating window opening up for free agency on Monday. Speaking of moves and maneuvers, it's trade deadline day in the NHL. Chris Meany from the National Hockey League will join us a little bit later on in this second hour to talk all about that and the stretch run on the ice. A jam-packed second hour. It is the second hour here on this Friday on the early line.
Absolutely. Excited for this second hour right here. And by the way, free agency technically beginning on Monday where the tampering can start happening. You're going to see a flurry of deals come down this weekend from players already under contract with their team getting extensions and also shoring up that a guy doesn't reach free agency. The Buffalo Bills just signed Terrell Bernard, 4 years, $50 million contract with $25 million guaranteed. Get used to that because smart organizations understand, all right, free agency starts Monday. Let's wrap up all of our business internally so we know exactly what we're working with and not saying, hey, go test the waters in free agency. Oh, no, we didn't sign anybody because we waited on you to come back to us and you signed with somebody else. Now we're left out. Good organizations like the Buffalo Bills, taking care of their players, wide receiver, now a linebacker. Let's see what they do entering into free agency. But get ready for a flurry of deals this weekend and a lot of money tossed around.
Took the words right out of my mouth. DRS,
Yeah.
Terrell Bernard, a 4-year, $50 million deal,
Yeah.
as DRS just said, to remain in Buffalo. Again, what good organizations do. They have foresight to extend and pay their players, rewarding them for success, but also helping out the finances with some flexibility for said franchise as well. We have seen a lot of those deals happen in the last 48, 72 hours. More over the weekend in free agency, although it's just the legal tampering window starting on Monday. Basically, that is the start for free agency, 4 p.m. Eastern time this upcoming Wednesday. League year officially begins. Those deals, trades, and signings can be made official. The Commanders yesterday re-signing Bobby Wagner, 1-year deal for the vet, guaranteed $8 million on the contract as well. A 10-time Pro Bowler, an 11-time All-Pro player, including a second-team nod this year. He remains in Washington. And, of course, some of the biggest news this week, DK Metcalf requesting a trade from Seattle. GM John Schneider of the Seahawks talking about it yesterday, saying, quote, obviously DK has requested a trade, and we are entertaining that. We are talking to a ton of teams, taking offers, seeing what that looks like. That's smart posturing around the NFL, to be very transparent about where this deal stands and trying to up all the assets necessary if a team wants DK Metcalf.
Exactly. Call around teams. Don't even wait for the calls to come to you. All you need is 2 to 3 teams to get into a bidding war, and you get exactly what you want. You move on. Wide receiver is happy, and you move forward from that. And also understand this. Sometimes you don't understand like what it means to an organization on the free agent market. If you are notorious at handling your own players, not in the best respects here, that goes a long way where if it comes down to 2 or 3 teams like, hey, the Bengals are offering you a lot of money, and your agent has to sit you down and go, understand if you take this Bengals money, that's all you're getting, and they will run you ragged and leave you hanging out to dry. Or, hey, choose Seattle. Hey, do you remember when DK went out and said, you know what? You've been a great player for us. We'll get compensation back. You'll move on and make more money. That goes a long way. That's a healthy organization saying, if you don't want to be here, let's get the right back. Because they're not going to fire you. Oh, you don't want to be here? 6th-round pick. Like, no. They're going to expect very good compensation back for DK Metcalf, but at the same time, they're not going to give him away. And also, other players see organizations that take care of their players.
For sure. And Donnie, part of the conversation, of course, for DK Metcalf is his contract. Signed an extension back in 2022 for now what feels like a discounted rate for any top-flight wide receiver at $24 million per year. The going rate in the last few off seasons for a wide receiver, $28 to $30 million at bare minimum, which, of course, is what Metcalf is hoping to make. He's only 27 years old. He spent all 6 years of his NFL career in Seattle. So, Donnie, when you think about where that stands then for the Seahawks, if they're going to allow this trade to be entertained, they also know whatever team is going to trade a first-rounder, a second and third-rounder for DK Metcalf, they are willing to give Metcalf said signed extension. And if that's not $30 million, then they can go to DK and be like, listen, this is what this team is willing to pay you. All of this stuff makes a ton of sense. It is sound negotiation, although Seattle is starting a new tenure. I guess not really. Mike McDonald's about to enter year number 2, but a new look to the offense with DK Metcalf more than likely on the move. Tyler Lockett released earlier this week. Jackson Smith and Jigba, really that top target now for Geno Smith.
Yeah, it's interesting, and we'll see how it plays out, but understand this. Like, yes, DK Metcalf isn't just asking for a trade because he just wants out of Seattle, which is part of it here. He wants out of Seattle because the new team he goes to will give him a new deal with the elevated salary market that they have. Maybe cooler heads prevail because, you know what? I like the direction of this franchise. They offer me a little bit more money, and I'm happy that happens because we're going to talk about, too, like a Myles Garrett situation in Cleveland where who knows when 2 men get into a room and start talking and say to themselves, all right, you know what? I'm not happy here. You're not happy with us. How can we make it better? And after 30 minutes, 45 minutes, you know what?
Yeah.
I really don't want to leave. can you promise me you're going to get like some wide receiver talent or some running back talent? Or how about give me another player at defensive tackle to help me? Give me a little bit more money. We can be happy. You never know what the response is going to be until you talk it out here. So for Jimmy Haslam, the owner of the Cleveland Browns, going, hey, Myles Garrett wants to trade, wants to meet with you. Yeah, I'm good with that. Oh, that always gets off to a good start. And you want to spurn your most important player in your franchise who already has a ton of money in the bank who goes, I'll make it hurt for you guys. Let's see you in September when we're getting our heads busted out here and I'm sitting at home, how the fans feel about your organization. Nobody wants that.
And that's the report out of Cleveland early this Friday morning that Myles Garrett is prepared to sit out games if necessary. He wants to continue his Hall of Fame career somewhere else where he can actually compete for a Super Bowl. And the Browns are very far from doing that. But Jimmy Haslam is so mad at that idea. Reportedly, he won't even sit or speak with Myles Garrett. So you have one side, franchise ownership, front office aligned to the fact we're not even entertaining a Myles Garrett trade. Myles Garrett saying, I'm not playing for you. I'm not looking at a contract you present me, even if it's a ton of money. I'm not going to play for you this upcoming season. I'll sit out games.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem to be a very healthy environment, DRS.
What? Like even in real life, like the wife comes to me and is like, hey, you know what? We're getting a divorce. And like, we're not even talking about this. You know what's going to happen? We're going to get a divorce, and not by my choice at this point. But you know what? If the wife goes, she wants a divorce and we meet up, hey, maybe we can wine and dine and say, look, it's going to get better. I'll make sure I don't work at the SportsGrid network anymore. Whatever you need, honey, to make it work. See that? Maybe, you know what? Actually, I don't know if it's the issue because, I'm not sure. She knows I even have a job, but I sort of foiled that when I brought her to the office party. So it was like, oh, you actually do have a job. Or maybe I paid everybody to be there. She still doesn't know. Who knows?
And your wife, by the way, a lovely, lovely individual, despite all of this talk on the show. But, of course, she and the kiddo don't watch, so we can say whatever we feel like. But Donnie is correct, right? If the Cleveland Browns were doing this correctly, they would bump up the value for Myles Garrett, who is going to get a first-round pick in return, and try to do this ahead of the NFL draft in about 6 weeks' time. That would be the move because they already have the second overall pick. Let's make it a franchise-changing draft for Andrew Berry and that Browns front office. Feels like that might not be the case. Speaking of the draft, DRS, the pick before Cleveland, number 1 overall, Cam Ward becoming the strongest favorite we have seen in this market really all offseason, both at the end of the college football campaign and toward the tail end of the NFL year as well. Minus 320 for Ward to be that first overall pick.
By the way, hear me out on this, right? Like, we always advocate doing what's best for the franchise, which would be the SportsGrid network and how much we get paid and all that good stuff here. We're always worried about the paychecks, right? If we all put all our paychecks on minus 320 Cam Ward, we'd be better off for it. He's going number 1, Ben. Let's put the company money up for 1 month of total salary on Cam Ward. What do you say?
I'm down. I'll do it. I'll join you. Come on.